Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by the great folks over at Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Gujalli. Joining me is Harman Dial. It's another edition of Canucks Conversation, a Monday edition of Canucks Conversation, December 2nd. December 2nd. What episode is this? 716 or something like that. I think I'm going to start doing that. Top of each show, I'm going to say episode 716. Maybe chat won't like it. We'll see. I think we should. I think it's cool that we've done that.
It's actually 7:15 today.
7:15.
Another example of you struggling with counting.
Don't start. Don't even start today. We've got too much.
I'm surprised you got December right.
31.
There you go.
Easy money. Okay, we've got a packed show today, folks, so let's get into it. 2 Canucks games to talk about, but first I wanted to quickly get to the news of the day. In my opinion, there's going to be some other stuff that we bring up later in the show during anyone else, but I did want to bring this up. Quinn Hughes named NHL second star of the week. Macklin Celebrini named the first star. Shout out Macklin Celebrini. Really liking what I'm seeing from his game so far this season. Really liking me some Celebrini. But Hughes named second star of the week with 9 points in 4 games. He breaks Alex Edler's franchise record for assists by a defenseman. We knew that was going to come at some point this year. Came pretty early on in the year. He's on pace to put up more points than he did last year when he won the Norris Trophy. He's taken his game to another level. He's made himself a shooting threat. We're going to dissect some different parts of his game and things that he's done to improve. But Harman, he's somehow found another gear. And I think the most impressive thing to me is that he's done that, but he's done that while the team is struggling, right? And while the team doesn't have their A game, I did those report cards last week. Shocker, Quinn Hughes got an A+. Like, Quinn Hughes is the only Canucks A+ defenseman, and he's one of very few A+ that I handed out. The other one was Kiefer Sherwood, but when it comes to what both guys bring as a whole, like Quinn Hughes, in my mind at least, and, you know, not going to help me dodge the Homer allegations, but in my mind, like, Quinn Hughes right now is looking like one of the best captains in the league, in my view.
Well, he's working his way into the Hart Trophy conversation.
Exactly.
Right? For him to sustain this level of performance, not only as far as point production, but the extent to which he dominates play at a time when the Canucks don't have JT Miller, during a season where Elias Pettersson has played a lot better lately in November, but he was completely out of it in October. Brock Besser missed time with injury. Now he's without his defense partner, Filip Hronek. Quinn Hughes hasn't had nearly the same level of support and help that he did last year. And so for him to find another gear in light of all that context and light of everything else around him is exceptional. He puts this team on his back on a nightly basis, and it's so cool watching the evolution of his game. I don't even want to think about where this team would be without Quinn.
7-6 pointing out in the chat early on. One of those 4 games that we're including the 9 points for, Hughes got thrown out in the first 5 minutes. I didn't even take that into consideration. That should be in the NHL stats pack, but good catch there. 7-6.
But is that Sen's game?
Yeah, I think it's
part
included.
of that.
I think so.
My math is struggling for a sec here.
It happens to the best of us and the worst of us. You've got it?
No, it doesn't include that stretch because Boston, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Detroit. He got kicked out in the Ottawa game.
Okay, moving past that then. Bad contribution, 7-6. No, I kid, of course. But the way he's just kind of elevated his game, and do you want to talk about this going down the half wall stuff that we started talking about? Because it's relevant on the goal that Conor Garland scored to win the game in Buffalo on Friday. And again, folks, this is our first show since that game. Let's pull up that goal because it's a perfect example of what you want to talk about when it comes to Quinn's edge work and just the way he's attacking.
Well, when elite players break out to superstar level the way Quinn did last year, teams are pre-scouting how they attack, how to shut them down, how as a defense you want to try and slow that player down. And so you'll notice last year that Quinn had a couple of go-to moves, right? He loved the exchange up top with Hronek, where him and Hronek would switch sides. But the other go-to move for Hughes would be to just dart down the half wall. And I think by the second half, you notice that teams had, first of all, found a way to take away that exchange between Hughes and Hronek up at the top. But also, they decided, well, let's just give Quinn the space to skate around. If he wants to skate around the zone on the perimeter, like, let him. And what I noticed in the second half quite often was Hughes would have this speed darting down the half wall, but defenses would say, we're not going to chase you. We're just going to protect your lanes for the slot. We know that you're looking for a passing lane to the back door or a pass into the high slot. And so many times you'd see Quinn going down the half wall and then having to loop back around on the other side just because there weren't many options available.
Or hammer the puck around to Filip Hronek at the right side.
Yeah, and the way that he's adapted his game this year is so impressive because he's finding ways to consistently cut into the slot, into prime shooting locations, which when he's in those locations, not only is he a shot threat, but he's also a threat to make passes to the back door. And I cannot emphasize how insanely difficult it is as a defenseman to be consistently cutting into the slot. Like, it is damn near impossible, especially in situations when the opposing defense is set and structured. It's a combination of not just his skating ability, but his elite puck handling, and also the way that he's fighting through contact, fighting through checks. It's like watching a point guard, like prime Derrick Rose. Oh yeah. The way that he just slash into the inside using his insane level of athleticism, the ability to absorb contact. I just haven't seen a Canucks defenseman ever come close to doing something like this before.
That's a given. But Harm, let's focus on him as a superstar player, which obviously we know the Canucks have never had on the back end. The superstar player, you just said, he made the adjustment. Now when teams make that new adjustment of, oh, well, now he's trying to cut in the middle, okay, Quinn has other ways to attack you as well. And I think that's what's so impressive is and again, we've heard about the shot. We know he went into the offseason and said, I need to shoot more. And actually, he had a really good conversation with Olivia McDonald with the Canucks. They did that sit-down conversation there that they posted on the Twitter channel. And it was really interesting to me, actually, that Hughes kind of pointed out where he said, I led the league in zone time, but I was way down when it came to like shots that actually made their way through. And he was talking about how he wanted to become more of a shooting threat. And we heard him talk about that before, but it was interesting to see him kind of cite those stats of, I saw that I was in the zone. It's like, okay, great. I'm in the zone. What am I doing? I'm not shooting, and you need to become a shooting threat. And he's turned himself into that, not only just by, okay, I'm going to shoot 100 pucks or whatever, 100 pucks a day and get a stronger shot. He's done that, but he's also looked at, okay, like, how can I use what I'm really good at, which is my skating? How can I use that to get into better shooting positions? I think that's the biggest thing we've seen this year is him, like you said, cutting into the middle where not only does he become a passing threat, but he becomes a shooting threat that guys need to respect. And let's watch that Garland goal one more time, because to me, Harm, like, that is, obviously we know that's created by Quinn's edge work and everything, but this is also because teams are going to have to contend with the fact that he is trying to, they're going to have to contend with the fact that he can shoot, right? So, like, you're contending with a shooting threat as well. You also have to worry about the pass because it's Quinn Hughes, but they didn't think they'd have to contend with the shooting threat is kind of what I'm trying to get at here.
Also, watch the way that he fights through contact there.
Yeah, exactly.
That is legitimately, like, pretty decent defending at the start of that clip to try and, when Quinn is first trying to slash into the slot, but he just keeps fighting through that contact. It's impossible, it seems, for opposing players to strip him of the puck in those situations. That is such a rare ability. And the broader conversation here is you can't be a superstar threat if you're a one-trick pony. Mm-hmm. And I think we're realizing with Quinn Hughes, we already realized it last year with the way that we saw him evolve then, but this season is further proof that, hey, he went out, grabbed all the headlines as Norris Trophy threat, but also as a team that the Canucks are on the map as a quality side. So now not only Quinn, but the team itself has a target on its back. And yet for him to find that next gear just shows he's got so many tricks up his sleeve, and that is massive. Because again, if you're a one-trick pony, teams are going to figure you out. It may not be in the regular season, but it'll happen in the playoffs. And I think this is where, for him to show this level of versatility and consistently adding things to his toolkit, it is so special.
Yeah, absolutely. Karin in the chat is asking what the next level for Quinn is. He seems to be improving year after year, and we've said this before on this show, but even in past years, like last year, Quinn was still saying this. He always says to the media, and he's adamant on it, that I'm going to improve every year. And he says, like, my best years are going to come when I'm like late 20s, early 30s. Like he said that many times, and you kind of laugh at that because that defies the aging curve that we see in the NHL. But like, I know he's still young, but it's hard not to believe him with the way that he's playing right now and what that next level could be for Quinn. And someone else pointing out the team's success. What's the next level? I had this thought. I said it to you right before the show as well, Harm. And I'm going to try to not, like, I'm not trying to make this a joke or make it sound like a bit. It's a real thought I had. And, you know, say what you want. I know I'm probably not the first person to have this thought, but I did have the legitimate thought of like, okay, again, when I go back to not only is he performing well right now, but he's performing well and dragging the team out of what could have been a pretty bad rut. Like they're entering December second in the Pacific right now by points percentage. They're four points back of Vegas for the division lead. And I know it's been the division of mid, whatever you want to call it, but like the Canucks haven't had their A game. Quinn Hughes has had it all season long. This guy's dragging the team into the fight. The way I was looking at this was, you can't tell me that if you build like a somewhat competent blue line around Quinn Hughes, this is what he's doing when teams know that he's the only threat. When teams are able to just game plan around him on the back end, this is what he's doing. You can't tell me that this guy isn't going to be the person that if they win a cup in my lifetime, that he's going to be the one to do it. You give this guy a somewhat competent supporting cast around him on the blue line, like other defensemen. I have to say, like, I had that thought of, if they're going to win a cup in my lifetime, it's going to be Quinn Hughes that's the first to lift it.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from in the sense that so many times teams will rebuild, unintentionally tank, end up with a ton of high draft picks, and Detroit is a perfect example. Buffalo's another example where you get all these first overall. Well, I mean, Detroit's never had a first overall pick, but you get what I mean. Buffalo's
picks.
had a lot.
Yep.
A lot of these like top 5, top 6 picks, and you get good players. You don't get franchise players. You don't get guys who can go out and win these major awards, guys who can be best at their position. And it's not just Quinn, but to also have an Elias Pettersson, to also have a JT Miller, to also have Brock Besser, to have, you know, Thatcher Demko when he returns. It is really difficult to end up with a core of that caliber. So I get where you're coming from. I think the challenge is going to be, when you mention the supporting cast aspect, is unfortunately the salary cap, right? When Quinn's current contract expires, he's going to be able to name his price. And from there, the risk is you become what Colorado is right now. And that's not really like a bad scenario to be in, but in the sense that when you're paying Nathan McKinnon that much, when Makar, even though he makes less than $10 million, it's still a big boy contract. Rantanen still makes a big ticket, although he's gonna get another substantial raise as well. When you have your star players making that much money, like Colorado's a great example where they have that superstar talent, but right now they just don't have the supporting cast at all. And they're still a really good team. They're still a dark horse Stanley Cup threat, but you can understand why it was so much easier for them to win in 2022 when it was, okay, Valentin Shushkin is making peanuts, when Nazem Kadri was on that super team-friendly contract before he hit free agency, when Devon Taves was making $4 million against the cap. And this is where the Canucks are caught in this sort of like interesting window where the next 3 seasons, including this one, where you have Quinn at under $8 million, that is your best window to win a Stanley Cup. And you can understand where, for example, I think previously we were talking about when Elias Pettersson was really struggling, when there were all these injuries, that, okay,
it makes
you have
the
to
window
wait.
hairy.
It does, yeah. Like you were thinking, okay, is this a year where they should be really aggressive and push their chips in? And on the one hand, earlier you could understand that, okay, you want to wait and see. But on the other hand, you also have to look at that bigger 3-year window and go, like, this current Quinn contract is your best shot to win a Stanley Cup. So, of course, it helps that they keep winning and show this resilience. And I think that shows you that and gives you confidence that, okay, this should be a year where they're aggressive and then they make moves to upgrade the roster. But I get where you're coming from in the sense that, if they just find a halfway competent supporting cast, how can they not be in this year in, year out? I'm telling you, it's the window may not be as long as you think.
Sure. I'm still going to say that if they win a cup in our lifetime, you and I are the same age, Harm. If it happens in our lifetime, it's going to... And maybe we'll be doing Canucks Convo when we're 50, and I'll be able to... I don't know when I'll be able to say I told you so to this one, actually. I don't know when the Pirate Pack is going to get paid out here. But it was a thought I had that I was just like... And again, we don't know what the future holds, but there was a real thought that I had where it's more meant as a compliment to Quinn Hughes and not a slight against anyone. It's a compliment to Quinn Hughes that I see what he's doing right now, and I see what he's done and what he says and how he carries himself, and I just have the thought that this is going to be the guy to get it done. He's going to have all the franchise records. Nobody's ever going to touch those records, I think. Like, I don't think there's going to be another Quinn Hughes. Certainly not for a while. We didn't have a Quinn Hughes for 50 years. I don't know. I just had that thought. But anyways, Alec Taylor in the chat. This convo makes me want Rasmus Andersson at 4.5 for this season and next even more. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you talk about that supporting cast, and look, we've had Jeff Merrick on the show. We had all these people on the show that the outside view, the Canucks aren't a cup contender right now, but if they add a top 4 defenseman, are you comfortable saying that? And most of them say, yeah, maybe you add like a third line center, maybe, but add a real top 4 piece to this team, and all of a sudden they're in that contending status. You have the forward group now. You don't have the defense. I don't know, man. I had the thought, and I don't want to, again, I really don't want to come across as like, Quinn Hughes is the greatest ever. He's going to win a cup. It's going to happen. I just had the thought of like, if it's going to happen in my lifetime, it's going to happen with Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that take.
Okay. Karin, quads at 50. How many days are there in December again? I learned the knuckle trick, not to get off the rails quickly, but the knuckle trick. I learned the knuckle trick. I don't know why no one ever taught me this. You know the knuckle trick.
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
but...
well, I know all my months now after that showing on Thursday. I know them like that. Like, you could just say a month, and every time you say a month, I'll probably shout out how many days there are in it. But anyways, let's stay focused here. Canucks beat Buffalo. This overtime goal from Conor Garland, never seen anything like it. The between the legs. We've played it about 19 times on the show already, but to tuck it between your legs, I've never seen a guy do that the way that he did on that goal. Conor Garland, someone in the chat said, how did he not get an A+ in the report cards? I'm not going to talk about it right now. We're not going to go down that road, but Conor Garland, again, I think there was a slight, not hiccup, but he was great, and then he was good, and then now I think he's great again. I think he's playing great. Another guy I want to talk about that I've noticed in the past 2 games as we kind of transition to talking about Detroit as well. Dakota Joshua, to me, seems like he's starting to find it. Gets the point against Detroit, so it was good to see the point totals there because he had just 1 point through 7 games. Excuse me, it might have been 1 through 8, actually. But, again, a guy that it didn't look like he had his A game. And we're not sitting here being like, oh, well, that's unacceptable. Like, what's wrong with him? Like, you give him time. They've clearly given him the time. I think what I will say is maybe he could have benefited from a conditioning stint in Abbotsford, and I think we thought that might happen. They didn't go down that road. I think, again, hindsight's 20/20, but he probably could have benefited from that, but that's in the past. What I've seen the last 2 games from Dakota Joshua is him starting to attack the net again. It's him looking for passing options. It's him throwing his weight around. He's catching up to Kiefer Sherwood. He's not going to get the team lead, but he's going to get second. Second on the team in hits right now is Atu Ratu. Did you know that?
Wow, I didn't know.
So Dakota Joshua's going to catch him is what I'm saying, because I think Joshua's like 4th. So he's going to catch up. What I'm trying to say is I liked what I saw from Joshua. Think he's starting to find his game.
Yes, steadily trending in the right direction. And, I mean, Brock in that Besser game, too, that was by far the best he's looked since returning. I love the work that he had in the corners, which, again, just demonstrated the evolution of his two-way game, where he strips Ryan McLeod of the puck in the corner, sets up Pius Suter for the initial grade A chance, and then it's DeBrusk putting home the garbage for the goal. But then also on the power play, the crossing pass to find Garland on the back door. Canucks dominated possession shots when Besser was on the ice, which is notable because they were outplayed for large stretches of that Buffalo game. A lot of it was Kevin Lankinen standing on his head, but good to see Besser rounding into form. Of course, by the second period, he was on that line with Elias Pettersson,
which I think was a good shift.
Yeah, it was a good adjustment. And I'll also say this: if Team USA for Four Nations is looking to find when they build out fourth line, they're trying to find the right sort of a winger who can be defensively responsible and win board battles because they're not just looking for scoring ability. I don't think that the reputation around Besser has caught up with what we're actually seeing on the ice, in the sense that I still think people outside of this market just assume he's this one-dimensional goal scorer, when in reality he's done so much work to round his game out the last 2 or 3 seasons to be somebody that wins battles. It'd be a shame. And I really don't think this is a homer take, because I'm not one to really lean into
See, if it was
favoritism.
coming from me, a little different.
I really think it would be a bad decision if he's left off the Four Nations roster.
I agree, and I know that doesn't carry much weight, but we're going to clip this. All we need is everybody to retweet this video. It'll get to Team USA. Brock Besser's going to be on that team, and it's going to be because of Harman Dial.
It sounds like JT Miller's going to play, so you could, that chemistry and familiarity of having two guys that have so much chemistry playing together, that matters in a short tournament where there isn't a lot of time for players to often find chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about that, the Miller report. I was going to save it for anyone else, but let's quickly talk about that. Just a quick diversion. I don't even want to call this going off the rails, because I think this is a good thing to bring up. Andy Strickland reporting that JT Miller is fully expected to be a part of Team USA. Or excuse me, Team USA expects him to be available for the tournament. We're assuming that Miller's going to be on the roster. He wasn't on that first batch of roster announcement. Quinn Hughes was, but we're assuming that JT Miller is going to be ready for that tournament. That is what Andy Strickland reported. That would put him at February. He'd be back by February. And again, we don't really know when. We don't really know when JT Miller is going to be back. I know there's some people asking in the chat, like, when is he going to be back? They return home soon, and we haven't heard anything about, he's going to be back for the homestand. We don't know, and like, no one's really asking either. I get fans want answers, but the word indefinitely, they came out and said, yeah, it's an indefinite leave of absence. We're not even going to bother talking about this too much more, I don't think. It's just that you want Miller to be ready to go in terms of where he's at mentally. And we don't know what he's going through, so I'm not even going to try and go down a road of like, oh, like, let's focus on this or let's focus on that. Like, we don't know what's going on with him. Clearly it's a sensitive matter that that they don't want to talk about more than they already have, so we'll just wait and see. Like, we will get answers on this eventually. Like, you will hear from JT Miller again at some point. I can promise you that. Let's leave it at that. This Detroit game, Harm. Canucks beat Detroit. I love it. Like, it's just, honestly, it turned out to be such a successful road trip. And it's not over yet, right? It's not over yet. They still got the Wild tomorrow. But our poll question, do you remember this right before the road trip? How many games are the Canucks going to win? Everyone's like, if you win 3 games, it's a success, because there's so many, blah, blah, blah. There's so many injuries. There's Miller's gone, all this stuff. You just get 3 wins. Instead, like, there's a chance that this team comes home and they won't be first in the Pacific, but there's a chance they come home and they're 2 points out of first in the Pacific after this road trip.
Yeah, a lot of things are breaking for them right now. I mean, first and foremost, goaltending. I don't think we did enough to give Lankinen his flowers for how well he played against, I mean, both games, but Buffalo especially, where, I mean, 4 times he robbed Tage Thompson in that game. Like, 4 separate occasions. There are 3 times in regulation where Tage Thompson, one of the elite snipers in the NHL, had the puck with time and space in the slot. And all 3 times, Lankinen was perfectly positioned.
And not to mention overtime.
And then the OT save was just ridiculous. Lankinen going post to post to rob Peterka in the 3rd period as well was sensational. He continues holding the fort down in the Detroit game. Really, when you're shorthanded, when you don't have some of your best players, and you aren't controlling play the way that you're used to, you do have to lean on goaltending. And this is, remember when Hronek first went down, and we had our show on Thursday, I believe it was, where I was mentioning we can talk about external additions, who needs to step up internally on the blue line, but honestly, the biggest way to offset a Hronek absence is if your goaltending steps up, especially with Thatcher Demko potentially returning soon. The Canucks have gotten that so far. So to get the goaltending and then to get special teams as well, right? 5 for 5 the PK in the Buffalo game. The power play has been humming now. Like, that's kind of the formula when you aren't going to be able to play your A game at 5-on-5 because of absences and injuries.
And do you remember this conversation of, well, they need to go make a trade, and they still do. They still need to make a trade. We know that. But this idea like, oh, the Sharks are going to be circling now. It's going to be crazy. Like, now everyone knows they're vulnerable. I don't know if you saw this. Elliot Friedman's report on Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada, he reported that the Canucks are telling teams that we're not going to be taken advantage of and we're not desperate. Man, Kevin Lankinen is certainly helping them be able to sell that to teams of like, we're winning games. Like, we don't need to make a trade right now. We'd like to, but we're not going to pay a premium because Philip Hronek's out. I don't know how long that's going to last, strike while the iron's hot, but it was just so funny to me that was the, like, Friedman comes out, and we know where that's coming from, obviously. And it just cracked me up that was Friedman's thing, because I'm always watching for, okay, what's he going to say about the Canucks? They're going to be reported. It's like, yeah, the Canucks are telling teams they're not desperate. It's like, sounds like something someone pretty desperate might say, but anyways, it's just hilarious that Lankinen's helping them.
It doesn't matter what you say, it's what
absolutely
the position of your actual team, right? That actually carries weight.
Yeah.
When you're winning games, whereas it doesn't. If
that makes those phone calls a lot easier.
Yeah, it just you're. It all comes down to negotiating. It all comes down to leverage. Who is more able and willing to walk away? Usually, is it going to be able to dictate in any negotiation? And
with Noah Juulsen playing the way he's playing, Canucks don't need to trade for anyone right now. Let's pull up this clip of him blocking shots. The Detroit game. He almost took one in the Noah Juulsen's there. He was great on that penalty killing shift. And again, you and I were talking about this right before the show aired, Harm. Wasn't great at 5-on-5. Hasn't been great at 5-on-5. I think the stat you told me was they've been outscored 10-3 at 5-on-5 with Noah Juulsen on the ice. But you start to wonder, okay, Mark Friedman's sitting there. Maybe Vinny Desharnais can play some more minutes. We'll see what it looks like when Derek Forbert's back. And you're like, all it takes is one penalty killing shift like this to realize, no, that's why Noah Juulsen's in the lineup. And that's why he's not going to leave the lineup.
Exactly. The way that he blocks shots, the way that it's not just the competitiveness aspect of, him gutsy paying the price, but he's legitimately good at shorthanded, defending the rush, breaking plays up, winning those little battles, using his long stick. He's a legit PK ace. And when you look at how good Vancouver's PK has been this season, when you look at how pivotal it has to be for them to have success without some of the players that they're missing right now, you just can't. It doesn't matter how poorly he plays at 5-on-5. You can't take him out of the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it kind of, when you talk about not having Derek Forbort, like a place Forbert's really going to help is the PK, and Juulsen's definitely helped to kind of offset that a little bit, which is why I wanted to bring that up for sure. Forbert's skating, we did see that as well. We don't know when he's going to be back, but he is skating. We hope he'll be back soon, because you really haven't gotten to see Derek Forbort much this year. 4 games, right? He's played 4 games. Leaves after his dad passes away, so that's really tough for him and his family to go through. And then on top of that, you come back and you get hurt in your second practice and like what's basically a freak injury. That's just, pretty crazy to be honest with you. The run of luck that Derek Forbort's had. So we hope that we get to see him in a Canucks uniform pretty soon. Okay, anything else that you want to say about this Detroit game? 3 points for Elias Pettersson, 3 points for Quinn Hughes.
We got to talk about the DeBrusk caddy.
Yeah, okay, so DeBrusk, you just told me this. He's on pace for like 75 goals or something now?
Well, it's crazy. He's now on pace for 35 goals and 67 points.
I was close. 67 points. After a slowish start to a season, 35 goals. Harm, like, I do my preseason predictions. I threw out DeBrusk 30 goals. Thought it was a pretty safe prediction. Then month into the season, I'm like, oh man, I missed that one. He's gonna finish with like 19. Now on pace for 35. And this is a guy, Harm, like streaky scorer. Always has been a streaky scorer throughout his NHL career.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure one of my friends dropped him in fantasy right before the San Jose game, where he scored his first goal of the year and then went on a tear from November onward. But yeah, this is kind of the MO. And I remember the conversation that I had with him on that California road trip. You could just tell this was a player that was not just adjusting to the off-ice transition of moving to a new team, but just learning the tendencies of how to play with new line mates. He was bouncing up and down the lineup. Remember that first started with Elias Pettersson, then JT Miller, even had a game with Teddy Bluger. Was just like trying to find his optimal fit. Started on the first power play unit, then was taken off of it, was first in the bumper. It's just there were a lot of moving parts. And I think he's just finally settled now, especially when he got the first couple goals. It also, like the monkey off the back, it just helped him sort of ease into things. And you can tell right away he's got really good hands around the net. He's got a patience and composure in those situations. He's good at tips and deflections. He wins inside body position for those rebounds. And I mean, look at that shot in OT, right? He's got that finishing ability from distance as well. Not to mention his 5-on-5 two-way profile has been really, really good. Looking at the numbers, the Canucks have outscored opponents 20-11 and controlled 56% of expected goals with DeBrusk on the ice. So he's doing things well from a two-way perspective. He's producing offensively. He's exactly what this team needed. And again, we're talking about what, a $5 million cap hit.
You were looking for a Zach Hyman-esque investment when you signed that contract. That's
$5.5
what
million.
for.
My bad.
Same as Zach Hyman. Isn't Hyman also 5.5?
That sounds about right.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, they were looking for that investment. And also, I could go on a Luke Gazdic-esque rant right now about how bad Oilers fans are and how wrong they were, because when we threw out, they're looking for Zach Hyman. Oh, Zach Hyman scored this many goals. Zach Hyman's got less points, less goals than Jake DeBrusk right now.
I don't want to get into that.
Take that, bag milk.
I'm not getting into the DeBrusk Hyman comparison.
Yeah. Okay. There's a bunch of stuff in the chat right now. I will say this one from Karn. DeBrusk is on pace for 0 goals at home. Lankinen also doesn't have the best home record, but he's got a great road record. Now,
they're not allowed to fly back to Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's also worth mentioning the quality of the opponents the Canucks were facing on home ice compared to what they faced on the road. Look, we're going to do some look-aheads to the schedule, but this idea that, they've had this super soft schedule, I started to kind of poke around, and people are like, it's a house of cards, it's all coming down. Their schedule doesn't get much harder the rest of the year. It doesn't. Like, we've talked about the soft schedule to start the year, and it is important context for what we've seen them do, but, like, it really doesn't get that much harder throughout the year. Like, I've gone through and I've looked, and there's maybe 1 or 2 stretches that are similar to the one that they had against Carolina, New Jersey, and the Rangers, where it's 3 tough opponents, all games that the Canucks lost. There's similar stretches like that where you face Winnipeg later in the year, but this idea that, they face the 17th place team, so they suck, and the 15th place team is spectacular, it's going to get so much harder, that's just not factual in my mind.
I don't expect it to be a house of cards thing, and I get what you mean in the sense that I think the Canucks have been pretty fortunate this year, like travel-related back-to-backs, where the schedule just has been more favorable than it typically is. But I do think it ramps up, for sure. Like
this month, I think, is the most difficult. And then you could maybe make a case that January, but that's it. Like, you get through those 2 months, and then the back half, there's a stretch in March, too, that caught my eye. And I don't want to do a whole schedule deep dive right now, but like Harman, you just look through their schedule right now, and like people talking about the big bad January schedule. Any month you face the Montreal Canadiens can't be that tough. Like, let's just put it that way. And I mean, sorry, Jacob.
Yeah, but when you look what they have after Montreal, they got Washington, then Carolina, Toronto back to back, and then finish off the trip in Winnipeg. So you get a freebie against Montreal on Monday Night Hockey, but tough trip after that.
It is a tough trip, but it's also the Leafs against the Canucks in the regular season. I'm sorry, do we all have fishbowl memory? Like, what are we talking about here? The Canucks are going to beat the Leafs. Bet365 bet of the day, the Canucks will beat the Leafs on January 11th, 2025. Write it down. Do what you want. Leafs on home ice.
It's
Leafs
second
on
half
home
of
ice.
back-to-back.
Leafs on home ice. Well, it's not going to be Sheilov starting that game, right? Yeah, I might take it back if there's another Demko injury by that point. Knock on wood, of course. But you write it down right now, January 11th, 2025, scheduled win. In all seriousness, though, like the schedule to me, this idea that, you can't even really read into what the Canucks have done so far this year because of how easy the schedule's been. Just not factual. It's just not factual in my mind.
It's just not black and white. Is the point? Let's
put it this way, and I hate to cut you off again, but the October schedule that they had, where they finished the month, like there's a game against Tampa, Florida, New Jersey, Carolina, Philadelphia at the start of the year is always tough to contend with. Edmonton, your first game was against the Edmonton Oilers.
That was preseason.
First game was against the Calgary Flames.
There you go, the Wagon Flames. No. In all seriousness, you take that October schedule over like some of the months that are still to come. Or no, you take the months that are to come over October. But we'll do a schedule deep dive soon. We don't have to get too into it.
It is getting tougher, though. I'm not gonna
marginally. The Athletic had them.
I've seen the numbers on strength of schedule and everything, and I agree with your take for the most part, but not to the same extent that you're maybe pushing it.
Sure,
is all I'm saying.
That sounds like most takes that I push on this show.
Honestly, that's a pretty good way to sum up.
Pretty evergreen way for you. I agree with you, but not as passionately.
But you're going over the top.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's go to. Yeah, this Detroit game. People are pointing it out. We still talk about Elias Pettersson. I think 3 points. Still has another level to reach. It's great that he's been, looking more like himself over the past month, but we've seen him reach another level, so we're still waiting for that. We're still waiting to see him reach that other level. It is nice that we don't have anybody in the chat anymore being like, oh, can't win with EP40 or whatever
trade
it was.
Petey every rink wide. Trade Petey for a second round pick and a prospect no one's ever heard of.
We knew that those people would eventually be just kind of flushed out. It's happened, which is nice. But there still is another level if we're being honest with ourselves here. There's still another level for this player to reach. We've seen him do it. The one thing I will say, I have liked seeing him enter the zone lately with possession. He's been doing that a lot more. Led to a penalty call. Bursts of speed, all of that sort of stuff. Not flat-footed, not entering the zone, spreading his legs wide and looking around and then just losing the puck, because that was what was happening. Not just hammering the puck around for nobody. Going in with possession, making things happen, making plays. This is all on the path to Petey being back. Is he back? No, he is playing better. It's been a month now. He's reaching his form. What's he on pace for now? Like, I saw someone pointed out that he's
still below a point per game right now.
Total. Sorry, I meant over the past little stretch when he's been.
I think he's at 10
since he's
points
kind of turned it around.
Games.
Even longer stretch. I'll find it. Apparently, someone I can't remember if I read it on X or Blue Sky. He's on pace for like 113 points over a full season in this stretch. So he's operating at 113 point pace over the sample size that I looked at. I just can't remember what it is, but it doesn't matter. It is just still noteworthy. Oh, you're pulling it up?
Yeah, 17 points in 14 games since November 1st, which would
quick
be
math.
A 99-point pace.
I don't even know how you did that calculation.
It's use your brain, Quads.
That sounds pretty difficult. Okay. Anything else you want to say about Pettersson? The way he's attacking is encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, that's what stood out to me. The way that he drew the penalty, it was maybe the first time this season where I was like, damn, the way that he's driving through. And even on, I think it was maybe one of DeBrusk's power play goals, he was assertively on the drop back, just like barreling through the neutral zone for the entry, and he initially lost possession of the puck and Detroit didn't clear, so bit of a fortunate break there, which of course led to the goal. But just him having that confidence and that swagger to I'm just gonna will the puck in for this entry is mentally for me a sign that he's ready to sort of like take the mantle and drive play, and that's what I want to see with more consistency moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Lee, Quads only likes numbers 6, 5, and up. It's a good one. It's the thing you want to see from Pettersson, right? Is him just continuing to kind of trend in this direction. It's something we're going to keep an eye on. You hope it doesn't slip up. I saw everybody immediately jump on it on Twitter when he had the chance to shoot on the power play and he looked past. It's like, oh my gosh, there's October Petey. Like, there it is. He's back in the wrong way. But again, that was just a quick little blip on the radar. And you could see immediately as soon as he passed, he was like, okay, I got to shoot that. And we have seen him shooting more. So it was just really funny because everybody panicked on Twitter. And I don't blame them. Okay. You want to get to anyone else now?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. We were there for the first Canucks on reviewing party of the season, and we'll be there for the rest of them throughout the year. So don't miss out. Just minutes from the arena. Come by before and after the game, or whatever event you're downtown for. With the arcade games, the weekly drink specials, and the recently updated street food menu, Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. It's a great spot, even if we're not there. You absolutely should be. A lot of interaction in the chat today. Bit of a more serious episode today after going completely off the rails on Thursday, Harm, and people are liking this. People said they really liked the Thursday episode, but I think people are happy that we're focusing on the hockey today, and we're focusing on what happened. We got 2 games here. And Brad said this as well. I didn't edit the stat sheet, so I didn't see this, but Brad pointed this out. He said, Quads, that wasn't a blip about Pettersson. Wyatt showed it. There was no shot available. Defender had it blocked. So, there you go about Pettersson when doing the pass off.
That's good to know. I
didn't notice that either.
I'd only seen it on the main clip where you can tell the angle.
Yeah. Okay. Big Hog Hockey. Who's been? I can't believe I read that name quickly. Yeah, that's a good name. Who's been better this season, Makar or Hughes? My answer is obviously Quinn Hughes.
It's probably been Quinn. I
Nice.
haven't done a full deep dive.
Me neither, but I'm sure of it.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying because of the point totals, right? Because we know Makar's point totals are great, but it seems like just watching him, he's really been dominating from a two-way perspective again. I still think it's Quinn, but again, haven't done a full deep dive.
Deep dive, Schmeep.
Yeah, like I'm looking at Makar's numbers now, and it's a great, like, controlling 58% of expected goals, but at 5-on-5, they're only +2 with him on the ice.
That's crazy. Although, you know what? Georgiev's been so bad. Like, here's a conversation,
Yeah, okay,
Harm.
that's fair.
Here's a conversation, Harm. And trust me, like, I'm definitely not trying to, you got to hand it to Cale Makar. But
you know,
Georgiev has been one of the worst starting goalies in the league.
He has, but you know what? He's not getting killed as far as, like, PDO. Like, his PDO is a little bit below average, but it's not like the goals against is 2.35.
How does it compare to past years? Can you see that or no?
He's actually the reason why the goal differential isn't better for the Avs is because they're only scoring 2.63 goals per 60 minutes with him on the ice offensively, which is the lowest rate of his career.
Wow, I did not expect this conversation to turn to me trying to hand it to Cale Makar, and then you come out with a stat that shows that I was right in the first place.
In terms of generating quality chances, he's like, the Avs are creating a ton. It seems like they're just not burying their chances as well. Point being, he's having a great season and expect that goal differential to improve because they're controlling play really well. But I would give the nod to Quinn right now.
Jacob, did you just put in our chat that Makar has 11 giveaways from setting a new career high?
Yeah, I didn't even go into advanced stats for this. I just pulled up his hockey reference page, and he's at 37 giveaways already this year, and his career high is 48.
What? That's crazy. Giveaways are such a weird stat.
Yes, it's a weird one. Like
okay. Sorry.
But still, the fact that it's this early in the season.
It's a weird one, but it's also December 2nd, and we're talking about a career high in it. So
plus, he gets so many minutes with McKinnon. That's the big thing is the Canucks don't have a McKinnon. That Quinn Hughes gets to play with.
Quinn is having the better year, and we'll be sure to inform all the national insiders as they do our rounds on our show that they should be voting for Quinn Hughes, as we did last year. Michelle in the chat said Quinn Hughes is more consistent every night. That's the other thing. Quinn has been really consistent. There hasn't really been a bad game for Quinn. Do you remember 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? I was like, well, that was the worst game of Quinn Hughes' season, and I'm pretty sure he was like right middle of the pack when it came to chances. And it's just so funny that he's been so good all year long, and we're sitting here like, oh, let's try to pick apart his game and see where he's struggling. He's playing so well. 7-6 with the theory that Makar, the theory that Makar is trying to get traded. There you go.
What?
Jeremy Lee, Hughes makes everyone
Why'd you
play
even
better.
read that out loud?
Because it's hilarious. It's just a funny comment.
But so what's the like joke there?
I don't know that he's coming to Vancouver.
But he's not playing that poorly. We're still talking about.
Do you want to talk about if Cale Makar were on the Canucks? What does that team look like?
No.
I think someone in the chat earlier mentioned, like, who says no? Canucks trade Miller for Adam Fox with the Rangers. I'm like, okay, well, that's never going to happen. But same kind of conversation. Quinn Hughes playing with Makar or Quinn Hughes playing with Adam Fox. Like,
could
that's
you
a
imagine
fantasy
adding
team.
Adam Fox to this team for your second pairing? because Hronek can just play with Hughes at that point. Because you're like, we have this phenomenal play driver that can play on our second pairing. Your thoughts are?
Rangers are never doing that.
Give me your trade package for Adam Fox. Okay, let's start. Hoglander, first. No. Okay. Let's go here.
Throw a DPD that'll get it across the line.
Let's go here. This one from Paul Papadoulis. Did you see the data posted by JFresh with top speeds for a defenseman in the first quarter of the season? It had Tyler Myers in 5th.
Well, you know what it is? Tyler Myers doesn't have quick acceleration.
Yeah.
Which is why on defensive zone retrievals, he's not very agile. His edge work isn't the best. But because he's got such long legs, once he builds up steam, it's hard to stop that thing.
Well... I love the way you put that. JFresh also tweeted out this context. He said, to all the Canucks fans enjoying Tyler Myers' 23.4 mile per hour speed burst, I'd like to add the context that it was also his only burst above 22 miles per hour in the past 4 years. Buddy was spooked.
That's funny.
It is funny. But yes, I did see it, and I did think it was worth mentioning. Did we get to Miller? Yeah, we brought up Miller, the Strickland tweet. Darn it, there was something else that I wanted to bring up that's totally slipping my mind. Oh, yes. Four Nations face-off rosters are coming out on Wednesday. Like we said, we think Miller's going to be there. We're starting the campaign for Brock Besser to get there as well. Elias Pettersson's going to be on Sweden for sure.
Does Lankinen make Team Finland at this point?
Yes. I think it's going to be Saros, Lankinen, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, how can you not put Lankinen on that team at this point, right? With his old running mate in Nashville. Like, seems like a no-brainer, but... weirder things have happened. And
it also helps that Lankinen's playing his best hockey of the season, like, right now.
Yeah.
He was great in October, but I think he's playing his best hockey right now. I think this is even better than he was in October. And maybe that's recency bias, and I don't remember how great he was in October, because I know he was good, but this road trip, like, this has been the Kevin Lankinen road trip. If he starts all these games, if they don't have to go to Archer Shilov's, they're undefeated on this road trip to this point.
Yeah, they would be.
Yeah, they lost.
But also, they didn't.
They lost 5-4 to Pittsburgh.
But also, Tristan Jarry was Swiss cheese in the third period.
Yes. So what are you saying?
Like, I agree with the take, but
not as passionately.
But I'm just making the point. Like, the high danger chances were 10-3 for Pittsburgh in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not frame it as like Archer Shilovs is the only reason they lost.
He's a reason they lost.
He is a reason.
Kevin Lankinen would have won that game.
Again, I agree, but let's just be careful about how we're painting the narrative. Again, I agree, but...
Let's talk about Nils Hoglander. How many goals last year, Harm?
I forget.
No, seriously, Nils Hoglander, really, to me, not doing himself any favors. And we've seen recently in the Canucks Army comment section as well, I've noticed it, where... he'll get benched for a game and people are like, well, what did he do? And you go back and watch his shifts, and you can always figure it out. If you really want to figure out what Tocchet sees or what Tocchet saw that made him take him out of the game or bench him for the rest of the game, limited shifts, whatever you want to call it, you can usually figure it out. So last game against Detroit, I tried to figure it out. I tried to write it down of, okay, what's going to take Hoglander out of the game this game if he gets benched?
My list was like over 5 things.
I had 3. I had 3 that really stood out, but he didn't get benched. Did you notice this?
Yeah.
Of all the games, like Tocchet seems to do it after 1 or 2 mistakes, right? He's like, you're done. He kept throwing him out there after mistake, and I'm just like, I wonder if this is Rick Tocchet being like, okay,
showcase.
You know what? There's, and I'm not throwing out reports or any theories, but you assume that management would like Nils Hoglander to play more than 6 minutes a night. Can we say that? To me, this is Rick Tocchet and the fans. Let's say it's to the fans being like, okay, fine. You want this guy to play? Here's what you get. And he just keeps going out and making mistakes over and over and over. And I thought it was hilarious that was the game against Detroit. That was the one where he kept playing where it was just like, oh, there's a neutral zone turnover. Oh, there's an icing when he has no pressure on him. Oh, there's a hooking penalty 200 feet from your net. And again, I know some people are going to point out maybe not the best call. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. You just see these things piling up. And you said you counted 5? I counted 3. What did you see?
Well, I mean, I was just like...
You were exaggerating.
Well, not exactly. I counted 3 offenses on turnovers.
I had 1 in the neutral zone, so I missed
a hooking penalty, and then the icing. Yeah, I got to 5 anyway.
But yeah, it's just like Nils Hoglander, who scored 24 goals last year, he's really not doing himself any favors right now. Seriously.
Yeah, this is one that I want to do more of a deep dive on over the next week or two. But yeah, it's at the point now where he's got to pick it up. And again, I believe in him as a player. I think that if it's not here, if he goes somewhere else, that he'll figure it out as a middle six forward, a productive one, one who can drive play, one who chips in with offense, who is feisty. But he's fighting it right now. He's been inconsistent, which also say this, he's 23 years old. I think sometimes we forget a lot of this is like, oh, he's on his third NHL coach and how many seasons has he had? Still only 23 years old. Not every player figures it out by 23 years old. I still believe in the skill set. I still believe in the talent, but yeah, he is
he's fighting it right now.
He's fighting it really badly right now.
Final thing for me, and I think we can close out the show after this one, Harm. I just forgot.
Nice.
No, Jiricek. David Jiricek was traded, and we haven't had the chance to talk about it yet. David Jiricek goes for a first, a second, a third, and a fourth, and Damon Hunt is the package.
Were there really 4 picks and Hunt?
Yes.
Oh, but I think there was one pick going back to...
A fifth went
right.
back.
Right, okay, yeah.
So, quickly talk about this. Canucks face Minnesota tomorrow. We'll be back to break it all down, but he's not going to make his debut with the Wild. Really like the trade for the Wild, Harm. I was kind of looking at it, and I had the video that I put up on YouTube where I kind of asked, could the Canucks have matched this? I wrote about it, Canucks Army as well. I asked around, and again, the package we kind of came to, you can make whatever package you want, but the fact of the matter is the Canucks would have had to get rid of a first-round pick to get it done. Probably would have been a second or third, and then like it'd be a better prospect than Damon Hunt. You'd assume, pick a guy like Elias Pettersson, for example. Damon Hunt's a little bit older. Pettersson's outscoring him at the AHL level in his first year. We don't need to get into the Hunt-Pettersson comparison, but the simple fact of the matter is, even if it was like a first and a second, you're trading for a guy that you don't know is going to be a significant impact on your lineup this season, which is why I really like the trade for the Wild, because the Wild's best players are all still like a year or two away from their primes, except for maybe Kaprizov, who I think is in his NHL prime right now. But like you look at a guy like Marco Rossi, you look up and down the lineup, Brock Faber, you just brought him up. Like a top 4, the way I put it for Wild fans, is a top 4 of Brock Faber and David Jiricek is good right now, but it could be really great, arguably the best right side in the NHL in like 2 or 3 years.
But also Zeev Buum, too. I thought he was a steal of a pick. I can't believe how he fell to them. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the trade for them. They've got a really deep prospect pool. Unsurprising considering they have Judd Brackett, but it makes sense for them because they've got a long runway, whereas for the Canucks, it's not that the price would have been too high or
they could have done it. They could have done it.
But there's not only no guarantee that Jiricek moves the needle for them this season, there's also no guarantee that he's a top 4 defender the year after or even the year after. He's a prospect, ultimately. Close to being NHL ready, but the skating, the defensive play, it's a legit question mark. And those same assets, I think if Erasmus Anderson ever does become available, which major if, but if it does become available, I think you would have you'd prefer using assets towards somebody that helps you within that contract of winning a cup with this current Quinn Hughes contract.
And not to mention, we broke it down a few years ago of what rentals cost in the NHL and what it's actually going to cost for them to execute some of these trades. Like, you're not going to have to give up nearly as many assets for a Marcus Pettersson, who's going to make more of an impact on your lineup, you'd assume, than David Jiricek would this year. So that's basically what I came to the conclusion of when I wrote about it, when I did the video about it, was, yes, they could have paid it. I think if you're a Canucks fan, you're glad that they didn't pay it. Right now, maybe in 3 years, we're looking back and like, oh my gosh, they could have had him for that. But right now, you're looking at it and saying they're best off used saving those assets for down the line this season and seeing what they can do with a more proven target. Okay, good. This was a good show, Harm. I'm trying to see if there's any other
business. You got to get to your bet of the day.
Yes, which is going to be Quinn Hughes for the Hart.
So I actually looked. They don't have those futures available on Bet365 right now.
Okay, so it's not going to be Quinn Hughes for the
Yes, that
Hart.
was as soon as right when it was brought up in the chat. I did want to take a look on Bet365. Some other sports books have them, but not our friends over at Bet365.
Ooh, I got a good bet. This is wild. This is wild odds. You might laugh at me, but it's just a vibes bet.
All right.
It's on Prime. Blackhawks, Maple Leafs. We're taking the heavy underdog Chicago Blackhawks to take down the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs are on home ice. They're frauds. So it's time now for our Bet365 Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bet365. It is the Chicago Blackhawks money line at plus 350 against plus 350 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm feeling it.
Did they play last night or something? That is wild.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't need context. That was our Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Those are the wonkiest odds I've ever seen.
Yeah, the Blackhawks lost last night to Columbus.
6-3 to Columbus.
So they're coming looking for some vengeance tonight, and they're going to get it in Toronto. And you know the Leafs players are sitting there eating their apple in their pregame room or whatever, being like, oh, don't worry, they lost 6-3 last night. We can all mail it in tonight.
Eating their apple in the pregame.
Apple a day. You eat an apple. You've played sports. Apples are so important. Anything else?
No, we're good. Eating their apple in the pregame.
We'll wrap it up there. For my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Boudrelli. Thanks so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.